the way decisions are being made has changed. It's been revolutionized by the way the internet has developed. What we say at Digo is we are not in an advertising world anymore. We're in a social world. And in a social world, what people say to each other is more important.
How is this an evolution or a revolution for communications from your perspective?
I've made a concentrated effort in the last 2 years to dive into this virtual world. I built a career. I've written books on living in a brick and mortar world. And now I have, as some people on my staff refer to, Comic Book Eric playing around in the virtual world. Comic Book Eric is really popular, much more popular than the real guy. But Comic Book Eric is it's a mirror image of what I do during the day. It's taking what I'm able to do in the course of a day, including being here right now, and reaching large numbers of people simultaneously. And what's most important about it is that you can tangibly, I'm not guessing whether people are clicking, whether people are going. I can see it, and I can see it in real time. A company that Mark and I own together, we just launched a campaign this morning for Tappening. It's a environmental company that promotes tap water. I could see before I came here, and this is just from Twitter, that 30,000 people had actually looked at an ad that his brilliant agency did. I could see that before I left. So it's not like saying, oh, good ad, or maybe it will modify. You can see that, and you can see the pool at the cash register too. Or Facebook, MySpace, I have no idea. I know that they work, that they're very, very efficient, and I know that a middle-aged guy like me who needs the New York Times to start his day is a lot different than my 17-year-old daughter who knows as much about current events as me, who will never go to the curb and get the New York Times. So I think that, we need to be in both worlds until we figure out this world.
I think one of the interesting things that's happening within this space is the level playing field, and within mass media, the larger the company, the more advantages it had. It seems like the opposite is true in this case, in that the smaller the company, the more nimble they can be, and the less they have to deal with things like compliance, things like that.
Well, yeah, I guess theoretically. I mean, compliance is the big elephant in the room. But it's not just in this vertical category. It's for any publicly held company. So any publicly held company, ever. I never wrote a press release in my life that didn't have to go through compliance. And now we're talking about twittering 10 times a day. That's not even possible the way corporations are set up. I do think that, and I strongly encourage, especially this category right here, this is something that I strongly believe you need to be engaged in. And there will probably have to be internal conversations in order to be engaged in a way that will work for you. But not to just push out messages, but to be engaged with the people that you talk to provide information to them, whether it's saving a down payment for a house, or getting your kid into college, or getting your retirement back on track. People care about that, and they're looking for information, and they're looking for authorities that they can trust in that space that is a little bit different than what your quarterly earnings are going to be. And if you can be that resource, that trusted resource, there's a lot that's going to come along with that.
Some of the cliches of this industry, it's all about relationships. It's all about relationships. It's all about trust. It's all about service. The headline here is defining your voice among the shouting. I think defining voice kind of has to start with defining mission. So a voice isn't sort of an arbitrary thing. It comes from, well, what kind of voice do I need to accomplish my mission? I think it's got to be a mission of service first. And you have to be available. They have to be able to find you. There has to be principles that people are guided by there, so that you don't end up in compliance issues. But getting that right, IBM had to make some major moves pretty quickly in order to catch up. But getting that right early is going to be huge.
And I think, to the point about defining your voice among the shouting, I think traditionally, from an advertising standpoint, that's what we have done, right? We've shouted, right? Buy our product, we're the best, blah, blah, blah. And I think where we're moving to is more about, I think dialogue a great buzz term, but I mean, it's hard, right, to have a dialogue with every single person. But I think it's more about not necessarily a dialogue, but providing somebody with the information and content within advertising that drives them through the purchase funnel. And with social media and the technology that comes along with those platforms, you do have the ability to put not only your message in front of that person from a brand standpoint, but also the content and the experts and the context to drive that person from awareness to purchase in a lot shorter time frame. So I think the defining part is more about the communication and less about shouting, and that seems like a given. But we haven't really had the technology that's enabled that to take place up until this point. And I still think we're very scratching the surface, especially when we talked about I think the communication side of it is a revolution. The advertising side is still evolving. And I think, as I said, the DNA of companies need to change. But that's the real opportunity, is to move more from a shouting standpoint and more into an education content driving people through the purchase funnel, which at the end of the day drives sales and revenue, which is kind of what we're all here to do. So
yeah, and instead of shouting at a Super Bowl ad for $1 million, to actually be talking to people who are interested in hearing what you have to say. I mean, today, Adweek has a piece about me and Mark, and the first question my mom would probably ask is, let me see the magazine. It's not in the magazine. It's in the electronic version. I take the electronic, for this particular brand, I take the electronic version over the actual magazine because we're going to get clicks right from it, from people who are actually interested, as opposed to one step removed from something that I still place a lot of credence in the brick and mortar world, that all of that still matters, and there's going to be people going out to their curb to read the New York Times in the morning for as long as I'm alive, and that will influence the virtual world. But when it's in a venue where I can click and go right to your company, right to the information that I'm reading about now, it makes it, I mean, as a direct marketer, it makes it seriously easy. And I'll take the electronic version of Adweek this morning over the version that would impress my mother any day of the week, because it'll impress the cash register more for this brand to be in the electronic version. Obviously, you know better than me, but just that polling functionality that you have,
right.
What did we pay for that a decade ago?
Well, and that's the other thing. It's the ability to get that in a real time, information in real time, and very efficiently. I mean, to your point, it's not going to. You don't have to go out to a major research company, spend hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars doing research necessarily. You can use these tools and reach a great deal of people if you do it in the right way, and you have the right network, which does take some hard work. And I always say to folks, people say, oh, I don't get a lot out of the social media thing. I don't really get it. Well, it's like most things in life. The more you put in, the more you get out. And it's very true with social media. The more time you spend, with your connections and building out your profiles and getting involved and understanding the tools, the more value you will see from it, and the more ideas that will come through that, oh, I could do this or I could do that. It's very green. I mean, I don't think there's really a playing field that's been set yet. So these tools can be, that's the beauty of it as well, is that it's so flexible that you can start to get these insights.
But that's if you get in and if you get engaged,
right.
And if you put the time in. I mean, 25 years ago, I had a client, we signed a contract, and right before he signed, he said, you have to get a fax machine. I said, a fax machine for what? What would I use that for? Well, obviously, ridiculous. But to get in on technology now, to understand it now, to get engaged now, to put some time in now, so that because building a network, it doesn't happen overnight. I mean, I've been playing for 2 years, and I have a decent sized network, but it's 2 years. And it's a lot of time. There is both a time investment and a money investment. But if you don't make it, I could tell you 5 years from now, you won't have a fax machine because you'll have never built it.